Hey guys, it's Mama J. Now, I've had a lot of people talk to me about what is the process that you go through when you're doing a water change for a betta tank. Well, when my son was back in town a few weeks ago, he was nice enough to kind of videotape me kind of going through some of my normal routine, changing one of my 10-gallon planted tanks, and I thought I would share that with you. Now, whether you are brand new to the fish keeping hobby or maybe you've been a veteran fish keeper for a very long time, I hope that there's something that I share today that will be helpful to you as you go through your weekly water changes. So without further ado, let's get to how I change one of my betta tanks.
And I'm going to move my light over here so that I can kind of get a little better view. This is a cycled planted tank, and one thing I like to do is, since my Java moss just kind of sits there nice on the surface, I'm really good at vacuuming that stuff up, so I usually just kind of get it a little bit out of the way. And the first thing I do is, this is actually a piece of filter floss, and these I just cut them in little squares, and it works really well just to be able to scrub down the glass of your tank, and it kind of gets the worst of that algae off. So I've kind of stirred up some debris here. And another thing I'll do with some of these larger leaf plants is, if they have some algae on them, I'll just kind of go through and sort of wipe it down with my fingers. Usually these don't get too bad in this particular tank. And what I use is just a basic tubing here, and I love these bulb syringes. If you get a vacuum tube that has a bulb syringe, this saves your life so much hassle. And they have a in and an out button, and basically everything works by gravity. So I'll squeeze this and I'll put my tube under the water, and then as I squeeze it, the water will start going down into my bucket. Now, a lot of times I like to sort of see if I can, of course I managed to get it on there pretty tight. I usually slip that little bulb off so that if I vacuum up some gravel or something, I don't clog up the bulb while I'm doing it. Now, there is another attachment that you can use with these particular vacuum hoses where you can really get down deep in the gravel. Just for this water change, I'm just going to kind of vacuum the surface because everything's not too bad in this particular tank. And as you can tell, you kind of get a piece of gravel here and there, but that's okay. Another thing you have to kind of watch for are really curious betta fish that like to just get right in the middle of whatever you're doing. And I remember when I had Chance, he got a little too curious one day, and he took a trip on the water slide, as I would say. Unfortunately, he was fine, but I had a major heart attack in between time, realizing that he had gone down the tube. But that is something to be aware of, is just be aware of what you're doing and where your fish are at all times. Most of the time they'll get out of the way. Now, usually on these planted tanks, I do about well, it kind of depends on how soon that I've done the tank, but this one I'm going to do about a 50% change. And the other thing that I will do, if you're in an area that has hard water like I do, I really like these little scrapers, and I get these from the Dollar Tree. You can get 4 for $1. And I'll use them just to kind of go around the top of my tank. And works really well on a glass tank, but it really kind of helps get that calcium deposit off of the edge where you get your water line. And you can kind of hear where some of that builds up. So if I do it pretty frequently, it doesn't build up too bad. But you can see even on the rim there how the calcium in the water just builds up so easily. Then you can take your little pad and just sort of wipe it down, and that gets the worst of it. Another thing I like to do is, of course, I always check my my filter cartridges while I'm in here cleaning. And this is one way that I baffle the tank. With a Betta, you typically have to slow the flow a little bit. So even with a filter that is on a lower setting, I just cut these flugel sponges in half and I'll rubber band them to the front, and it helps create some extra medium for you to grow some good bacteria on, as well as sort of slows your flow down a little bit. Let's see here. Yeah, see, this has been in here a few weeks, but it doesn't take long to kind of gunk them up. Well, I'm going to take these to the bathroom and kind of rinse out the worst of the bottom of my sponge here. And get some water, and then we'll go again. What I'm going to do this time is my filter intake. As you can tell, it is just gunked with algae. And I found this little flexible brush when I was at the aquarium store, and I really like it because it's rigid enough to where I can get down in here, and then it's got the little brush, so allows me to kind of get down in it and sort of get the algae off of it. But as you can see, that kind of helps quite a bit to be able to get the worst of it out. Of course, this isn't something I do all the time, but if I notice my intake has gotten really plugged up, I kind of like to clean it up. If you monitor how long you have your lights on, then that kind of helps prevent some of these problems. Yeah, hey, look at there. That's 1,000 times better. So my filter medium, it's probably best to rinse this in some dechlorinated water, but a lot of times I'll just rinse it in the sink. And if I get a lot of algae on my carbon pack, I'll kind of rinse some of that off. Now typically you don't really do anything to your wire rings here, because you want to be able to keep some of that bacteria. And as I'm doing this, if you rinse off your other filter medium, that will take out some of the bacteria. So always leave at least one of those that does not, that you don't rinse off. Back together, we're ready to roll. Put your filter medium back in there. And my intake tube, which is nicely clean of algae now. Okay, so now I'm just ready to start refilling my tank. And I end up carrying a lot of jugs of water back and forth. Just refilling my tanks this way, because for me this is just the quickest thing for me to do. I always get some little floaty leaves too. And one thing that I found is that if you are doing it this way, where you're just pouring it by pitcher, if you can pour your water when you're refilling it, try to do it sort of slowly and pour it on kind of a harder structure like your piece of wood or a decoration. That'll kind of disperse your water and kind of prevents your gravel from being disturbed too much. So I'm going to grab some more water here. And again, I've dechlorinated all this. And you want to use water about 78 to 80 degrees. I always kind of think of it, I run the water on my wrist. So not too hot and not too cool. So just kind of a fairly warm there. And I just, this particular dechlorinator I'm using is just the Nano Complete. I found different ones at different pet stores, and I tend to like the ones that will dechlorinate kind of like 1 drop per gallon, because I think that that's a lot more convenient for me because I'm working with smaller amounts of water at a time. Okay, I think 1 more and that'll do it. If you have this kind of a filter, make sure that you have water in your filter before you plug it back in. And that's so you don't fry your filter motor. And it will drain out a little bit, but if I hurry, usually I can get it plugged back in. Okay, the only thing left to do is to fill up the rest of the tank here. And I do tend to kind of fill my tanks a little bit higher, probably than most people. And it's because this particular room is pretty warm and I get a lot of evaporation in my tanks, even with the covers on it. So right after I do a water change, I usually add just a little bit of extra water, but there's still a gap that's perfectly fine for them to get oxygenation from the surface. Of course, you'll have a little bit of debris still in your tank after you clean it, but the filter will take care of that and it'll be crystal clear here in no time at all. And I'll put my moss back in here. Get any little stray leaf I see. Okay, the filter cover can go back on. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and cut me a new baffle thing. And again, this is just a flugel sponge. And I literally just take a pair of scissors and cut these things in half. And they work wonders as a great filter baffle. And you can use these if you need additional filter material, depending on what kind of filter you have. These are wonderful. So I just get me a rubber band. You can get a big old bag of those from the Dollar Tree or Walmart. And I literally just rubber band that sponge on there, just like that. And that works perfectly to help slow the water down, and it also sort of directs it down, straight down into the surface, and so that just seems to work so much better for me as far as any kind of a Betta tank. James looks pretty happy. Now, I do this at least 7 or 8 more times.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope today's video has been helpful, and let me know in the comments below if you like videos like this and would like to see more on betta fish. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time.